Hey everybody, Tom Barnes, Stories from the 78 with Halloween in the rear view mirror. It is time to focus all about the holidays. And you know, some of them are filmed right here in Chicago. I'm going to talk to one of the producers of a new film called Christmas on the Ranch, part of a production company that shoots a lot of movies in and around Chicago for like Hulu and everything else. So I'm going to talk to John now. How you doing, John?
I'm great, Tom. How are you?
I'm doing well. I can't believe we're already talking about the holidays and movies and, you know, the elongated 2 months of just like holiday movies anywhere you want it on, you know, on various streaming platforms. But you have something coming out on Hulu here on the 1st of November. Why don't you explain a little bit?
Yeah, well, we've got a great new family-friendly Christmas romance called Christmas on the Ranch that's coming out on Hulu Friday, November 1st. It's our
Hmm.
second exclusive that we've done with Hulu. Our last Christmas romance film also debuted there. We're really excited about it. Hulu's a great, huge audience, over 50 million subscribers, and even more now that it's part of the Disney bundle.
Yeah, that
So
helps,
it's been a
huh?
really great experience. Yeah, for sure. Just great to get it out to as many people as we can. And next year it'll be available to an even wider audience when it comes out on all the other streaming platforms like Tubi and Freevee and all that kind of stuff. So very exciting.
So this is it's called Christmas on the Ranch, and it's filmed in and around parts of Chicago, including at WGN Radio, which I think is cool because I mean WGN Radio is one of the oldest stations in the country. Kind of fun to finally see it in a movie.
Absolutely. It's such a beautiful facility. It's right there on the river, just west of Navy Pier. We actually used it for two different radio stations in the film, one set in Chicago, one set in New York. For the Chicago stuff, we looked east toward Navy Pier. For the New York stuff, we looked north up Columbus, just sort of,
Uh,
nondescript metropolitan
sure.
buildings. And it's just a big enough facility with enough different studio locations where we're able to actually play it as two different radio stations. The people there are great. Got to see Walter Jacobson, who I grew up watching,
Oh
just
yeah.
kind of casually walking down the hall while we were shooting. And, obviously it's a radio station. I'm sure they do a decent amount of visual podcast stuff, but a unique opportunity to show some of their listeners the actual radio facility because it really is an impressive location.
And where other spots did you? I know you went out to like the northwest area of Illinois to shoot some of the scenic scenes, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, downtown Long Grove is a big one.
Oh,
We've used that as
beautiful.
a backdrop on our last, on all three of the Christmas films we've done so far. It just looks like somebody designed it to be a studio backlot on, the Warner Brothers studio lot or something like that. The village is great to deal with. A lot of iconic locations. The covered bridge they have out there has made an appearance in each of the movies.
Nobody knocked
No,
it down in the filming of it, right?
no, certainly not. And we certainly made a point to all of our staff that were driving trucks, to be extra careful around that, especially since we wanted to feature it in the film. Although, at least on two of the movies, it did get hit by somebody in the days leading up to production. And the
Uh-huh.
village expedited the repairs for us, and we're just did a great job. And the whole Ela Township, the transportation folks, the public works folks, the village management were all super accommodating. We didn't shoot at the Village Tavern on Christmas on the Ranch, but we did on our previous two, and that's the Illinois' oldest continuously operating restaurant. So there's a lot of rich
Wow.
history there, and so it's great to be able to showcase those locations and all the history that they bring. We also shot at some equestrian centers in Hawthorne Woods and Mundelein, which are neighboring townships to Long Grove in the northwest suburbs. So it's been really great to shoot there because it has that sort of semi-rural, rustic, small town, quaint small town feel. But it's close
Hmm.
enough to the city where getting all the gear and all the personnel that we need to make a movie. It's close enough where everybody can commute each day, and we don't have to overnight everybody at hotels or anything like that. So it's really the best of both worlds in terms of the aesthetics that we're looking for, and also being friendly for us logistically.
It feels like you're touching upon something that maybe John Hughes started years and years ago by shooting on the end of Illinois, certainly the North Shore, where John Hughes did a lot of that shooting. But you guys took that and just moved it a little bit west, though, to come up with these concepts that you have from your entertainment label. Is it Merry Entertainment? Did I get that right?
Very Merry Entertainment.
Very Merry. Yes, and you formed that with your friend Chris, right?
Yeah. Chris and I
College
met
buddies?
at Columbia College, Chicago, 20 years ago, and we've been working together pretty much ever since. And we got into the Christmas films back in 2021, and have done one each year since. And it's been interesting. I mean, it's the John Hughes films that you mentioned. They're not necessarily Christmas movies. I guess the Home Alone
Sure.
would count. But there's just something about the lighthearted fare that, we could be making weighty dramas and so on and so forth. But in today's sort of socio-political climate, there's just something nice about the feel good, low intensity, happily predictable, nostalgic kind of films. I think, we do what we can to draft off of the great filmmakers like John Hughes that have been successful at that in the past. So that definitely plays a role into what we're doing at Very Merry.
And, just using the backdrop of the areas that you called. I mean, I know you have ties to Long Grove with your wife having like a dance studio in downtown Long Grove. I mean, it's such a beautiful, picturesque town. They have like a huge Apple Fest going on there. And among many other things, it seems crazy to me that it took this long for Long Grove to be, partially starred in a movie. You know what I mean? So kudos to you guys for knowing that spot and using it. And I imagine getting a movie made is not as easy as one would think. I mean, everybody thinks everything's easy these days because YouTube and streaming have made it seem easy, but there's a lot of work to get things done, especially not when you're outside of Hollywood, right? And you're in a town that doesn't have a whole lot of filming going on. I imagine there's some odd hurdles that you had to overcome to get there, just to like make people realize, no, this is like a movie. We're doing a movie. We're not like putting on a bit, like this is a real thing.
Absolutely. There's a certain amount of skepticism, I think, that we have to overcome. It gets easier each time we do it. We can point to the trailers of our previous films and point them to location referrals. Somebody's door that we knocked on the last movie had a good experience. If somebody's a little suspicious of us when we show up at their door for the next movie, we can always say, talk to this person. They had a great experience. But yeah, folks around here haven't necessarily been called up to be a movie location before. You shoot out in Los Angeles, and you're talking to every business and residence that you talk to has been involved in a movie or a TV show or a commercial. They know the drill. Out here, it's like they think it's some kind of scam at first, and so there's a certain amount of trust
Very Midwest
that we have
of
to
us.
get over. Yeah, right. So that's been a bit of a challenge, but I feel like we're pretty good at explaining ourselves and earning their trust early on, and then you just follow it up with transparency and consistency. And I think all of the locations that we've worked with on these movies have had good experiences, and some of them have welcomed us back to shoot additional scenes in subsequent movies. So that's definitely a challenge. I think there's also, from the municipal level, when you're shooting in Chicago proper, they have a Chicago film office that is set up to handle municipal permits, police hirebacks, renting barricades, closing down roads, stuff like that. When you go into some of these smaller municipalities that don't have as much experience with that, there's definitely a learning curve that goes into it. Long Grove is great, and having done 3 movies there, by the time we got to the 3rd one, it was very much like there was a shorthand that we had built up with the village administrators. So that can be a blessing and a curse. Is they don't have an infrastructure set up, so there's not a lot of red tape for us to cut through. But also they're sometimes not quite sure how to handle it in terms of a municipal support level. Long Grove's been great. I actually really can't say anything negative about any of the municipalities we worked with on these Christmas films. Other films in the past, though, we've had challenges where it was just like, hey, we need to close down this road for whatever, and the village is like, we don't, how do we do that? And we're like, don't you have a procedure for that? Or
right.
So we've gotten really lucky working with the townships that we've worked with on the Very Merry films.
So for like soup to nuts, how long does it take something like the movie that's coming out on the 1st of November to come to fruition? Is it like a year and a half? Is it shorter than that? Like, walk folks through the process of like coming up with conceptualizing the script to the locations to finally, wrapping and putting a bow on it.
Yeah, great question. So for this particular movie, was actually based off of a script that we found. So it was an existing script that a guy had written, and we found it, and we liked certain aspects of it, but needed to change it so that it would fit our production model around here. That was in the spring of 2023, and we went through the development process. We hired a writer who's actually based out of Buffalo Grove, so he's right there, right next to Long Grove, knew the space and knew all the locations. We worked with him on our second film and are working on a fourth one with him now. And so we developed the script with him over the summer and got into, location scouting and scheduling and the funding side of it in the fall. We shot in December, did post-production throughout the winter, and completed the film in May and delivered it to the distributor. So it took about a calendar year from A to Z, and then we had a few months off once we delivered the film, and then now we do a little bit of a promotional blitz right before the film, a couple weeks before and maybe the week after the film comes out. So it definitely takes a year for producers from start to finish. The director's probably the person that's on the second longest, but it's maybe more of like a 6-month thing for them. And some of our crew members are on for 2 or 3 weeks, and then they're on to the next project, which sometimes we're envious of that because it's but that's one of the things with being involved with these movies for so long. You really want it to be subject matter that you can live with, and that's one of the things with these lighthearted Christmas films is it's exactly that. It's lighthearted. It's easy to deal with. We're not worried about there's not edgy subject matter or anything like that we have to live with.
There's enough of that in the world.
Exactly. That's kind of what we found. And, Chris and I, when we met 20 years ago and started working together, we weren't like, oh, let's make Christmas romance films. I don't think it was even a thing back then. And, but it's, you just do enough movies and you get them out in the marketplace. You see how, what films do well successfully, commercially and critically. And you just hear from the distributors and the different networks and what they're looking for. And, Christmas romance was something that we heard for years and years and years before we finally wised up and saw, what a demand there was for this type of content. And also it's a burgeoning market in terms of the different buyers out there. You've got your Hallmark, Lifetime, but there's a lot of new TV networks and a lot of new streaming platforms that are getting into the space. Obviously we found a home at Hulu for our last 2, and that's been great.
And you also had AMC Plus for one, right?
Yeah, the first one came out on AMC Plus. That was also great. So that was when we certainly AMC is known for The Walking Dead and Breaking Bad.
Yeah, but, which is a little different. Why if you wouldn't mind, I don't mean to interrupt you, but run through the movies that you've done, just so folks who might be like, oh, wait a minute, that's the same guys. Oh, cool.
So the first Very Merry film was called Christmas with Felicity. That came out at the end of 2021 on AMC. It had a 1-year exclusive, and then it was available on a bunch of other. It's available on a bunch of other platforms now: Tubi, Freevee, Pluto, all that stuff. And the second one we did, we shot that one in the winter of 2022. Came out a year ago in November of 2023. That was our first Hulu film. It's on Hulu to stream exclusively now, but you can rent or download it on Apple TV, Amazon, Fandango now, and Google Play. And then Christmas on the Ranch is our third title. We shot it in December of 2023. Comes out on Friday, and it'll be exclusively on Hulu this Christmas. But next Christmas, both Christmas on the Ranch and Reporting for Christmas will be available on all those other streaming platforms like Tubi and Freevee and the other ones that Christmas with Felicity is on now. So next Christmas, all 3 of them will be available on a multitude of platforms.
Speaking of multitude of platforms, you mentioned a couple, and I mean, they're, like you said, they're everywhere. And, it allows people to find it in different ways. My dad was talking about Tubi before I even knew what Tubi was. And the only reason why is because Tubi was showing like old movies that he loved. And I was like, what is this Tubi? And then all of a sudden you look at it and they're like pushing out content like crazy now. And it's a free streamer over, so I mean, That's interesting how the landscape has changed within like the last 5 years of streaming, where now there's like commercials in streaming, for the free ones, which makes sense. But even like the different levels of platforms for Hulu or for, HBO Max, whatever, what have you, it's interesting. So is it good for you guys, or is it better for the studios? Like how does that help?
I'm sure that the studios figure out a way to make everything good for them, but
Yeah,
for us,
that's
it's
true.
great. We feel like the audiences, especially for an independent film that doesn't have millions of dollars of marketing money behind it, where there's very little audience awareness. It's a much better proposition for the consumer to press play and know that there's no cost associated with it. And if they don't like it, they can turn it off. And if they do like it and want to watch the whole thing, it doesn't cost them anything except for a little extra time watching commercials, which we're all very familiar with from
Sure.
YouTube and from linear cable for all these years. The thing that's been really interesting for us, though, is seeing the evolution. When we were kids watching movies, the movie would come out in the theater. Then, like
Yep.
a year later, it would come out at Blockbuster to rent. And then, like 6 months
Yeah.
later, you could buy it on video. And then a year later, it'd be on TV. And they really had this long process of how they would play out the
Oh,
different release windows
took
because they could
forever.
control where people would watch the content. They could say, "Oh, we're only doing this, we're only doing that." For us in today's environment, that's kind of the opposite of that. It's like you want your content to be available everywhere people are watching content. So we do deal with some exclusives. Christmas on the Ranch will only be on Hulu for this Christmas, but once we're able to open it up everywhere, we try to get it on all the platforms because everyone has their own audience. There's people who watch Tubi exclusively. There's people who watch Peacock exclusively,
Yeah.
or favor one platform over another. And we could be out on Pluto TV, but some people have never heard of that. They only watch Tubi and Peacock, and so for us, it's just once we play out that exclusive window, we try to get it everywhere people are watching content. And you have to start with the exclusive because you can't get an exclusive once you release it wide. So that opportunity is no longer available to you once you go wide with it. But for us, we love dealing with Hulu and their big audience base. And, it's a great brand to be associated with. But it's also
Yeah.
rewarding to get the film out there to a wider base when we can because, in the end, you just want as many people to watch it and enjoy it as possible.
Which I'm sure they will do here on November 1st. The new movie Christmas on the Ranch. With that, you mentioned as we were talking here in the subsequent years before the release of these movies, you were shooting one. Are you shooting one right now? Or are you about to shoot one coming up here in a month?
Yeah, we're developing one right now. We're hoping to get it off the ground this year. If we don't get it off the ground this year, we'll definitely do it next year. We're kind of sticking. I don't want to reveal too much, but we're sticking with the animal theme. We're just expanding the animals. So if you can imagine, use that to imagine where Christmas is going to take place in this movie. It's a place with a lot of different kinds of animals. So we're excited about it, and we really like doing them each year. There's a great momentum to it. It's great to have one movie coming out when you're getting ready to shoot another one, and it's been really great to shoot these films in December because there's a certain holiday magic that's present
Yeah.
on the set that you don't get at other times of the year, especially doing a Christmas movie during the Christmas season. There's seems to be a certain vibe on set that we don't see at other times of the year. So very grateful to be able to do that.
And a lot of the crew that you use are Chicago based, right? I mean, you're kind of supporting the film industry right here in the area that you call home.
Absolutely. Yeah. We, as you can imagine, when we graduated from film school, there's a lot of pressure to move out to LA or maybe to New York. And Chris and I resisted that and stayed in the Midwest. We're Midwestern guys. We appreciate the Midwestern work ethic, the integrity. We like having all 4 seasons available to us. And, there's just a certain camaraderie that you get here. Not to say that you don't get that in those other locales, but we've done films in other states, in California, in New York, and Chicago's it's just been that place that's always been so good to us that we never wanted to leave. And we do keep as much of it local as we can. Pretty much 100% of our vendors are all Illinois based, and everybody on the cast and crew except for the director and the 2 lead actors are are all Illinois based, and we got a great crew base here for behind the camera work, and the on camera crew base is great as well. So we've never really had to venture too far away from home to get everything that we need.
Right. And, you hear all the time, I just saw an article recently about the fashion industry and how there's so many people that come up in the fashion industry, but then leave Chicago to go to New York or LA or London or Paris or what have you. And they're making a concerted effort to, have that available here for them to turn into that, what they went to school for, to be a professional job here in Chicago, being the third largest city in the United States. You think we'd have more of a scene for the fashion, and that's what the argument was. I would argue that the film industry has been doing that for a while, television and film with CineSpace and the other studios that have popped up here. So it's good to hear there's a lot of talent in Chicago. A lot of great directors, producers like yourselves, have come out of Chicago over the years. And certainly you have Second City and Columbia as like these places, even DePaul, like the kid from Stranger Things. I can't remember his name right now. He was at DePaul and he wrote a song about his time in Chicago that was like a huge hit this summer. So yeah, Chicago, I feel like has so much potential, and kudos to you guys for finding it and using the talent that we have here to make these movies.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, one thing that we're focused on, and I know there's a group of folks that are like-minded, is Chicago's been a great production location for a long time, but we'd like to see more of the development, story development, script development, that side of it. We'd like to see more post-production work done here. We'd like to see the distribution, marketing aspects of the process. I think that's one of the things that it's grown. We're getting there, but that's one of the things that New York and LA have that we don't. They have development companies that focus on development. They have finance companies. They have distribution companies. They're able to host the process from the very beginning to the very end. And Chicago has been a very reliable location for, productions to come in, shoot for a couple of weeks, and then the first chunk and the second chunk of the process don't take place here. And I think that it could and it should. And we've been able to derive a lot of inspiration, from the environment here that for the entirety of our careers. And so we know that that those aspects of the process can flourish here. And we're just trying to bring some more awareness and perform those aspects of the process here to try to, show others that it can be done and that there are good reasons to do it here versus on the coasts.
Right. And as far as I know, I talked to Michael Kutza. Are you familiar with that name? He started the Chicago International Film Festival.
Yes.
We talked for a long time. He wrote this book called Starstruck, and the book just goes in detail about the Chicago International Film Festival. But briefly before that, he was just talking about Chicago as it was like Hollywood back in the early silent film era days. There's a Charlie Chaplin studio here. I believe it's in Uptown, but it was like so it was the epicenter of movies back then, and it certainly can have a part in it going forward. Hollywood shouldn't get all the love, right? Like Chicago is a beautiful setting for a lot of movies. And, you were talking about Long Grove and Buffalo Grove. Was that the other grove that you mentioned? I have another grove for you for a potential location for a movie. Have you ever been to Spring Grove, Illinois?
I don't believe so. Is that south?
No, it's north. It's up by it's by the Wisconsin border, north of Antioch.
Okay.
But there's a Christmas tree farm, a pumpkin patch, and in the summertime an adventure farm. And I have been there a few times. That's where people go. And just last year, for Christmas, you go out a day after Thanksgiving and you go cut your tree down at Richardson's Tree Farm. And when you're there that day, if you have never been there, do yourself a favor. Go there. If you celebrate Christmas, or if you don't, and you want to donate or whatever you want to do, go there the day after Christmas if you're around. And you will see what looks like what you're describing in your movies, that feeling, that holiday feeling. You see it on display, and it's like nothing you've seen, with the people cutting down the trees. They're putting it through the thing. People are in line for hot chocolate. I've been there many times where I'm like, this is, I think I said, this is a Hallmark movie in the making. How has nobody been out here yet? And George Richardson, the owner, is like, I don't know, but I got the script in my head. I say that just because it is a beautiful setting. And I think, again, Illinois underrated in terms of what we offer, because we do have like that ruralness. And if the further you go west, it gets a little hilly. So it doesn't even look like you're in Illinois, And then, of course, you got Chicago, you got downstate. But up in that area, right on the Wisconsin border, is a lot of fun stuff. So Richardson Farm in Spring Grove, Illinois. And you can give me a finder's credit for that one. Just a credit. I don't need to get paid or anything like that. But
sounds like a plan. Yeah, that actually, now that you mention it, I think we may have reached out to them for our first Christmas film. We were shooting that in April, so it was hard to come by Christmas trees. But the male lead is supposed to, in the film, he's a farmer. It's a dairy farm, but he also has like the Christmas tree component to it. And so we were reaching out to local, nurseries that where we could source some Christmas trees for that. And I'm pretty sure that was on the list. The more and more you were talking about it, the more and more it sounded familiar.
Yeah, it's a family-owned. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I just moved up kind of not too far from Antioch recently, so that's kind of in my backyard. I should know about that at this point. So I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, honestly, it's a great place. And right now they're doing, obviously, their pumpkin patch for Halloween and all that. And I think they stop on tomorrow, or on Halloween, to get ready for the Christmas season, to bring all their stuff over to the farm. But I do know in the last few years they have planted trees where they're at a spot finally where now, as the years go by, as they cut down trees, there's a new crop ready to go. When they were just getting started, they didn't have that luxury. They weren't planting enough, but now like they figured it out, where they got the Christmas trees. In the spring they have tulips, gigantic tulip fields out there. It's a very cool place. I'll stop talking about a place that has nothing to do with you, but I was just giving you an idea. But the movie comes out on the 1st to kick off the holiday season. Christmas on the Ranch, filmed in parts of Chicago and on the northwest suburbs or towns of Illinois. So congrats to you on the big debut here on Hulu on the 1st.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's streaming on Hulu exclusively, so people can just go to Hulu, get signed up, and they'll be able to watch that movie and a couple others that you have as well.
Yeah, and anytime too. That's one of the other great things about Hulu and the streaming platforms is you don't have to wait for it to appear on linear cable. You can watch it any time of the day, any day of the week, whenever you want. You can watch it on repeat if you want to. So that's one of the great things about the Hulu release. So it doesn't have to be 7 p.m. on a specific day. It's whenever you feel like it.
Right, not like it was when we were kids, right? We had to wait for the TV to put the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Josh, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Tom.